Here's an example of a program that's not that easy to read. This is our two-dimensional array, where we had a two-dimensional array where we kept the number of cookies that were sold, and we also had arrays for names and the cookie names. And here we filled up our two-dimensional arrays with random numbers that we generated. We printed out our heading here with our cookie names. Lines 30 through 35, we printed out the name of the Girl Scout at the left, followed by our the number of cookies that particular Girl Scout sold, and then we did this 4 times for all the different Girl Scouts. And then here we printed out the total numbers of cookies that each girl sold, and finally we printed out the total number of each kind of cookies that were sold. But you have to kind of wade your way through all of this to figure out what's going on. So let's see if we can make this a little bit more readable. Let's pick this chunk here, and let's see if we can get this into a method. And this is where we are printing out the name of a girl and the total number of cookies that that girl sold. Well, I know I'm going to have to repeat this piece of code, so let me I'm going to copy it, and the reason I'm going to copy it is so that I can just keep that here for a minute and comment it out. So I'm going to go to the end of main, and it always helps if you label end of main, because you know that your methods come after this. Public static void, and now I want to pick a name for this method. What am I printing out? I'm printing out the number of cookies each girl sold. So I've decided to call it cookies sold by each girl. And because it's a method, I need starting and ending braces. Okay, fine. I said that I would copy this code into here. So I'll just paste it in. Now, my method needs to know cookies and name array. So it has 2 arrays that it needs. So I'm just going to call them A and B for a minute. And I know that, let's say A is cookies. These are ints. This is cookies is an array, a two-dimensional array of ints. So int, two-dimensional array of ints. And what is B? B is my name array, so that's an array of strings. So in place of cookies, I said A, and in place of my name array, I said B. This should work as long as I call it in main. So let's go back and see what I call it. I call it here. Okay, let me get rid of that. I don't need it. That's what I called it. And I'm just going to call it and then fix it up in a minute. Copy from here. Where did I call it? Here. Okay, it wasn't A, this was my array called cookies. And it wasn't B, this was something called name array. So this is the call to my method, and here I've written the method. Let's run it and make sure that it works. There we go. Okay, let's see if we can do it for the next one. So the next one is the total number of cookies sold. So total number sold. Let's call that here. Total cookies sold. I probably need some parameters. I'll fix that in a minute when I fix my spelling mistakes. Okay, so total cookies sold is another method I'm going to write after this one. So that's the end of this method. Okay, this all goes into that method. Cut it from here, put it in here. Again, it needs two arrays. One was my cookies and one is my cookie array. The other one was a string. And when I call it, I have to call it with the right parameters. And the order that you put the parameters is important. You'll notice here, because in the method I put the two-dimensional array first, I have to put it first in the call to my method. Here I did the same thing. I put the two-dimensional array first. You don't have to put it first, but whatever one you put first has to go first in our method call. So we called it with cookies, and I think it was called cookie array. And here we go, still got good output. One more thing about having arrays as parameters. When you write your method, you need to put the type as in your parameter, but you also have to put the braces. When you call it in main, you do not put the type, you do not put the braces. And this is true for any method. In the method call, you have to put the type followed by the name, and in main, you just put the name and not the type. So one last thing, let's see if we can put this in a method now. This is where we were printing out our data, the girl's name followed by the number of cookies sold. Actually, if we go up, this is where we put out the heading. So maybe all of this is where we printed our data. Let's just check to see where this goes. Okay, this is for that for loop. So this whole piece here, I'm going to put into a method. I'm going to call it print data. So I'm going to cut it from here, make myself another method, public static void print data. Okay, I think I got my parentheses right now. This and this are my ending parentheses. Okay, now it needs to know cookie array, name array, and cookies. So it needs 3 things. And I'm changing the names just to make it clear that the name that goes as a parameter when I create my method, such as here, does not have to be the name that we use when we call it in main. So I needed my cookie array. I needed 2 string arrays. And then this is, let's say, call this one B. And then this one would be C. So I better make sure I get these in the right order. Which one came next? B. Which one was B? B is the name of my cookie array, the heading. And name array. And let's run this to make sure that we got those in the right order. Okay, good. So let's just take one last look at main. Considerably shorter than it was before, and I think a little easier to read. We create these 3 arrays. We get random numbers and put them into our 4x4 array of cookies, and then we print our data. We print information about the number of cookies sold by each girl, and we print total cookies sold. The details are in the methods here, but just reading through main, we can get a better understanding of what we are doing. We're still going to fix this a little bit. We're going to, when we learn to create different kinds of methods, we'll consider putting this random number generating into a method, and possibly even everything from here into a method. We'll see. But right now, we got some of it in methods.